Allison, Anderson, Brown, Carmichael, Chalmers, Clark, Convery. I don't seem to have Councillor Cooper in the meeting. I'll just check. We have Councillor Cooper is present also. We have Councillors Cowan, Devlin, Fagan, Ferguson Miller, Hamilton, Kerr. We have apologies from Councillor Logan and Councillor Cowie is substituting. We have present Councillor Loudon. I don't see Councillor Hugh MacDonald in the meeting. I'll just have a check. Don't have Councillor MacDonald in the meeting. Hugh MacDonald. We have present Councillors McCarlin, McClyman, McCreary, Leslie MacDonald, McLaughlin, Nelson, Razak, Robb, Ross, Shearer and Walker, and I'll hand back to the Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I come to item 1, which is declarations of interest? Are there any declarations? If there are none, can I come to item 2, which are the minutes of the previous meeting? Before I come to the minutes of the previous meeting, can I say that Roads and Transportation Services have asked me to highlight an issue. Colin Park has advised there was an error in the City Deal report that went to the last committee meeting. That is item 9 in your minutes. Where the report referred to Highstone Hall Road, it should have been Leyston Hall Road. Could I just ask you to be aware of that as we are considering and approving the minutes? The previous minutes do not need to be amended, but we wanted to make the committee aware. I have 2 points. One is from Councillor McLaughlin. I'll come to him now.
Thanks, Chair. It was just on that very point that you just mentioned. I did discuss it with Colin Park after the meeting because it didn't seem right to me that Highstone Hall Road would get the improvements. However, when I spoke to Colin, he showed me a diagram of what was proposed. If that diagram had been on the actual agenda, just like we do at planning, where you have a diagram just to show you the locations, that would have helped. But I do have a question, and I've spoke to Colin about it, but I wonder if it's maybe worth taking it up after the meeting, or if I can raise it here. But the suggestion to create a right turn storage at that particular junction, I assumed it would be on the main road, turning right off Woodfoot Road onto Leyston Hall Road, but it seems it's the other way around about. And that wouldn't necessarily, I wouldn't term that as a right turn storage. What they're doing is they're widening the junctions for both vehicles, right and left, to queue simultaneously, whereas at the present, there's a single queue and it tails back to the shops. Colin, I wonder if you could maybe comment on that with your indulgence, Chair.
Briefly, because I think it's quite a detailed question. We don't have the papers in front of us, so if it's something we can deal with briefly just now, if not, then I think we'll have to take it up after the meeting. Colin.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor McLaughlin saying I'll kind of pick up the detail afterwards, but the right turn storage, sorry, the right turn lane coming out of Leyston Hall Road will improve the capacity. That's what was identified as part of the original planning consent a good number of years ago, but I can pick up the detail, Chair, post this meeting. Thank you.
Chair, can I just come back? It's just in the terminology, because I'm pretty sure, and the minutes aren't here as the Chair said, but it did say create a right turn storage. I'm pretty certain it says that in the paper. Maybe you could check that, Colin, and we'll pick it up later on.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Can I come now to Councillor Loudon?
Hi, thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. I've got a question on item 8 from the previous meeting. When Councillor Fagan and Councillor Convery had moved the recommendation to alter the qualifying distance for the school buses, it was with additions, including that the Council would progress work and collaborating with parents and communities and take forward dialogue with the bus sector and potential community transport operators as well. During that debate, I'd also asked about the timescale for parents and carers receiving walking routes that they had requested, as the timescale is still a matter of concern for many of them. Could we please have an update on the following 3 points since the last meeting? Has any progress towards collaboration with parents and carers been made? Have there been any meetings with operators? And what progress has been made with the outstanding route requests that we learned about at the last committee? And if that's not possible just now, could we please pick up these 3 points at a future meeting?
Okay, I'm going to come to Lynn Sherry to respond to those, and if there is anything that we can't deal with just now, we'll deal with it later or a follow-up after the meeting. Lynn.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I can give you an update on some of that there. Communications went out to parents after the committee to advise them that the decision had been taken, and that we would start with some of the road safety checks, and that from November we would begin to inform parents about their distance eligibility and information on safety checks where they had requested it. We also asked if anyone had safety checks that they were concerned about, then they could write into us, and we gave a link to a form. So that's been done. In terms of the timescales, it's from November onwards where we'll start to let parents know where they are in terms of eligibility or not. In terms of operators, we have had some meetings with SPT and begun dialogues about sharing information on estimate numbers in certain areas, and they are going to take that forward with us in linking in with operators to see what potentially could be done about making use of the under-22 bus pass. In terms of engaging with parents directly, we haven't done that at this stage. Once we're further down the line of some of these mitigating factors and getting some of the road safety assessments, that would be the time then to start engaging, I think, with parents at that point. We also informed the head teachers at the head teachers meeting that took place just after the start of school session about the plans, and that we'd be in touch looking for dialogue and interactions between school, parents and community as we progress.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? No. If there are no other questions, can I ask that we approve the minutes?
Agreed.
We're agreed. Come now to item 3, which is the Revenue Budget Monitoring Report for period 4, and Jackie Taylor is going to speak to this report. Jackie.
Thank you, Chair. This is our regular Revenue Budget Monitoring Report. This is taking us to the 12th of July. At Section 4, we are reporting our projected outturn position for the year to be a break-even position, and the details of that are covered in Appendix 1. Just to highlight, as I've done in previous meetings, Section 4.3 in relation to teacher numbers. So as a reminder, this is allocation of funding in relation to teacher numbers of £145 million across Scotland, which is conditional on councils agreeing to maintain teacher numbers. The council's share of that would be £9.4 million. Just to give an update on where we're at with that, we have met with the government around this. They have clarified that we won't know a position on us receiving all of our funding until after the census figures are published in December. But it did give us an opportunity to express to the Scottish Government the reasons that we do expect our teacher numbers to drop. It's not about savings that have been agreed, it's more in relation to decisions on using temporary funding in the past to increase our teacher numbers. So that meeting has given us the opportunity to explain that, and that was appreciated by the Scottish Government, and we've been asked to put that in writing when we submit our census figures later in the year. Again, just at Section 4.6, just again a repeat of what I've reported before around the fact that we're still awaiting money in relation to increase in teachers' pension costs. Again, that has been promised to us to be passed through once the Scottish Government receive that. And a reference at 4.7, just in relation to one of the cross-cutting reviews that the Council's undertaking around Loans Fund, we'll be reporting later in the year the outcome of that. Our housing revenue account position is detailed at Section 5, and as covered in Appendix 2, we are expecting a break-even position on that account. So if I take you back to the recommendations, we're asking that the break-even position for General Fund and the actual spend as at 12th of July, which is shown in Appendix 1, be noted, and also the break-even position on the housing revenue account and the actual spend at the 12th of July as per Appendix 2 be noted. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I ask if there are any questions? Alec Allison.
Just quickly, Chair, are there any consequences of the 4.5 point causal leaders suggesting we do not sign the grant letter at this time? Will there be any consequences to the Council regarding funding coming in or anything?
If maybe Jackie wants to respond to that, and if there's any political side of that that's missing, I'll maybe come in, but Jackie.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor Allison, at the meeting we had with the Government, there's no suggestion that because we haven't signed the grant letter that should affect us being able to still receive that money. And I've not had anything in writing to say that we won't get the money either just because we haven't signed that grant letter.
I suppose the point I would make is that causal leaders have taken a united position on this. Robert Brown.
Thanks very much, Chair. There was, of course, the Finance Minister's announcements to the Scottish Parliament yesterday about the various economic financial cutbacks, if you like, that were going to be taken forward there. Are there any suggestions that has any implications for the Council and Council funding, either directly or in terms of indirect funding?
Well, I'll bring in Jackie, but I think we are probably still considering the statement, and it is probably out with the retrospective scope of this report. But I'll ask Jackie to respond.
Very much that position. We've obviously seen what's been publicly made available. I haven't received any other information from that directly from the government or from COSLA, but we will have to consider any implications for us.
Right, if there are no other questions, can we agree the report? Can I come now to item 4, which is the capital budget monitoring paper, and it's back to you, Jackie.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the capital budget monitoring for the same period, taking us up to the 12th of July. If I take you to section 4 of the report, we're reporting that for general fund, our capital programme is £86.9 million. At section 4.2, we're covering the adjustments that are being proposed for the programme in this paper. That includes additional funding from the Scottish Government's Road Safety Improvement Fund of £497,000 and a direct award from Transport Scotland for projects that align with the active travel framework of £261,000. There's also an update in relation to Hare Myers Park and Ride project, and I'll cover that in a second when we get to Appendix 2. So those amounts of money are for specific purposes in terms of spend. On page 22, in terms of our forecast at section 4.4, we are at the moment looking to maximise spend, but as I mentioned last time, we are reviewing our programme for secondary schools. There are an expectation that we will be able to report back in October with a change position in terms of how we will spend our money on secondary schools, with the likelihood being that we will make spend into 25-26. In terms of actual spend to date, we spent £7.4 million, and on our housing programme, we're reporting a programme of £77.2 million, and at this point in time, we are looking to maximise full spend on that. In Appendix 1, the adjustments to the programme that are proposed are detailed. So as I mentioned a second ago, we've got Road Safety Improvement Fund of £497,000, and the details of how that will be spent is included there for your information. In a similar way, the Roads People in Place Local Authority Direct Award of £261,000 is detailed there as well, again with the following, with the projects being detailed in that appendix. In relation to Hare Myers, the tender submission for Hare Myers was higher than budgeted. So this exception allows us to deal with that increase in cost. We're also reporting that, as I've reported previously, we were expecting to have to borrow money that was promised from Transport Scotland, and they would repay us back in future years, but they have now agreed to provide £2.5 million of grant funding this financial year. So that reflects an additional £500,000 of borrowing of funding, and we will no longer have to borrow that money up front. And over on page 25, also in relation to Hare Myers, SPT have noted a further commitment of up to £450,000 to fund this project. They will include that in their list of projects for next year, should sufficient funding become available to them. And as a contingency, if that money isn't received, we would have to look to our roads budget to underwrite that £450,000. We're also using active travel money to complete that project as well. So the adjustment to the programme is £950,000. The other appendices within this report covers the detail on our funding for our capital programme, as well as the breakdown of the programme over resources. And if I take you back to the recommendations in the report, we're asking that the position for general fund and the housing capital programme is noted, that the adjustments to the programme as listed at Appendix 1 be approved, and that the continued monitoring by the Financial Resources Scrutiny Forum is noted. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I ask if there are any questions on that report? Could you please indicate now? Alec Allison.
Sorry, Chair, me again. Thanks, Colin, for the response regarding the Hindford Road to Renstray comment. 6th highest in the accident black spots in South Lanarkshire does surprise me, because I am well aware of other roads where there are a lot more. It's in the wards, I'm aware of other roads where there are a lot more accidents. The problem is that if they're simply in a bit of road and the car disappears before the landowner knows they're there, there's no point in reporting it. And it only costs them money if they need to go to the police. So I'm a little bit concerned that we're investing money in the wrong bit, not in the wrong ward, but in the wrong bit. Secondly, the Hare Myers, the changes to the way that that's being funded, obviously welcomed that we no longer need to borrow money and the extra £500,000, but there is over 1 million, if I get 1.3 million coming from the active travel fund. Now, I haven't seen in detail what was announced yesterday, but if this isn't being implemented till 25-26, could the active, I am led to believe the active travel budget is being reduced by the Scottish Government. Will this money still be there? Is it guaranteed? Or is it subject to the announcements yesterday? Because if you add that on to the fact that SPT are not certain of getting their £500,000, and that would need to come out the roads budget according to the figures here, that needs to be kept in mind when we do the budget next year. Like to see this going ahead, but I'm really concerned about how the finances are going to work out.
I don't know that there's a huge amount more that we can add to the previous response in the previous paper, but I'm going to see if there was a question about the other the road safety measures, which I'll come to Colin for, and then if there's anything Jackie wants to add, I'll invite Jackie to do so. Colin.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor Allison, I'll share with you later our prioritisation tables, which shows our route action plans, priorities and our single sites as well. We take them to the Road Safety Forum every year. We do capture injury accidents only there, and I think that's the point that you're making. There are other locations where non-injury accidents occur. Up until about 5-6 years ago, the police recorded them, maybe even a little bit longer. So just now, that's what our focus has been on. It's the only way we can get kind of detailed information of what's happened. But I'll give you details of the relative priorities against that particular route and the other ones as well post this meeting. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Notwithstanding what we said earlier about not having the detail around what was announced yesterday, we do know that for active travel there are 2 tiers of funding that were in the pot originally. We do believe that the area that perhaps has been put forward for withdrawal is more in relation to Tier 2 funding, and this particular funding for Hare Myers is in relation to Tier 1. So whilst we still have to get the detail, we are hopeful that the funding for this project won't be affected.
Okay, Catherine McClyman.
Thanks, Chair. I don't know whether I should have brought this under item 4 or item 6, but since we're talking about the money that we got for Hare Myers, which is brilliant to get that money, I'm aware that we're 800,000 short for the bus station at Lanark, which is a health and safety matter, and obviously it's no fault of the council, it's the Scottish Government having to give the money to the SPT. So I'm just wondering if there's any plan on how we can get that money. I know we've been in dialogue, Colin, but it really is something that's on for years now, and we've done wee bits and pieces there, but just this final bit just hasn't been able to come to fruition because of that shortfall. So just if there's an update on that, thanks.
Thanks, Chair, and Councillor McClyman as well. We do have a current funding shortfall of the figure you said there. Just now, what we're looking to do is just position ourselves to get on site as soon as we can. So we're funding of about 300,000 from a pot that was identified last autumn. We're using that this year to acquire the land from Network Rail. That's likely to be £100,000. So overall, I think we need 1.1. We have 300, so we're 800,000 short. We're continuing to explore either SBT funding for next year, noting Councillor Allison's point there that obviously whatever funding is available, we'll have to prioritise Hare Myers from that. But at this moment in time, we don't know what SBT's funding position is going to be for next year. Neither do they. So as normally around about October, November, we'll put in bids to SBT. That hasn't came forward yet as a request, so we'll continue to have that dialogue and also position ourselves if there's any other funding that we can tap into, coming through from the economic development side. But just now we're short, but we are looking to position ourselves that if funding does become available, we can hit the ground running. The last thing I want to do is money becomes available and we don't own the land. So that's what we're looking to do. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions on this report? Or not? Can I ask us to agree the report then? Agreed. We're agreed. Come now to item 5, which is additional funding from the Scottish Government and other external sources. And can I ask Jackie Taylor to speak to this report?
Thank you. So, this is our additional funding paper, the details of which are in Appendix 1. All of the additional resources that we've received I've mentioned in the last report. So that includes the Road Safety Improvement Fund, the Roads People and Place Local Authority Direct Award, and £2.5 million for Hairmars, reflecting that the funds are now coming in cash this year from Transport Scotland. So we're asking that that position's noted. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we've dealt with it in the previous papers, as Jackie said. Are there any questions? There are none. Can we agree the report? Agreed. Come now to item 6, which is the Glasgow City Region City Deal Hairmires Park and Ride full business case. Colin is going to talk us through this report. Colin.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to set out the full business case for Hairmires Park and Ride and advise committee of the next steps in progressing the project. We've covered much of it already this morning through the kind of financial discussions, but just to kind of pick up on a few points, under Section 3 and in the background, members will be aware the Scotland Community Growth Area comprises several individual education and transport projects, which will be delivered over a time frame of up to 7 years, essentially looking to accelerate the delivery and the benefits that will be secured through the community growth area. This is the third project to be brought forward to full business case. Section 3.5 sets out the requirements for the development of business cases for projects, and members will be aware about the various other business case stages that have came forward. With the SBC was approved in August 15, and then the outline business case was approved in August 18. Full business cases for each project required to be formally approved by committees like today and also by the City Region, and depending upon the value of the project, that can be done via delegated powers. And we are expecting to get that approval today on the back of today's anticipated approval. In terms of the current proposal, this full business case has now been produced. It will generate a number of benefits as a result of the sustainable transport improvements that will be brought forward. This will address the potential increase in traffic movements in the local road network and hopefully encourage the use of public transport alternatives. The proposal will be in conjunction with the relocated station, which is currently being built 650 metres to the west of the existing station. It will comprise 2 new signalised control junctions with full pedestrian crossings and cycle facilities as well, a designated bus loop, the provision of an EV community charging hub, disabled persons parking bays, and down at paragraph 4.3 there's a little bit more detail about numbers for people to understand the kind of scale of the project. What I should have said is, running in parallel with this, for those members who are in the planning committee, there are additional pedestrian crossings going to be introduced as well to support this, but they're not directly linked to this funding pot. 4.4 just kind of references the kind of areas that we had to continue to make the case for in the full business case in terms of a strategic fit, commercial, economic, financial and management case. And Appendix 1 sets it out in a little bit more detail. Essentially, what this project will allow the community growth area to come forward faster completion of the number of houses that have been built, better job outputs and better economic outputs across South Lanarkshire and the wider city region. 4.6 goes into some detail about the funding, as Jackie's already highlighted. It's a £7.2 million project made up of a number of partners funding, and that is now being secured. Subject to the approval today, subject to hopefully approval later today from the PMO, and a few other things will fall into place this week. We do expect to award the contract over the next week or so at the latest, and we're looking to commence works in the autumn, back end of September, early October, continuing through to spring, summer 2025. Probably looking for completion of the southern side around about May, June, and the northern side shortly thereafter, to make sure we have enough parking for the opening of this station. In terms of just 6.3, just draw attention to the point that Jackie made. The £7.2 million project cost is higher than we initially anticipated. We unfortunately have had increases in the construction projects, a whole range of issues contributing to that in terms of materials cost, just the market kind of leading with what the prices were. It's an increasingly busy market out there with bidders being able to gain work without minimising their rates. But notwithstanding, we have managed to put together a funding package that will allow us to deliver the project and deliver the benefits we talked about earlier. That's largely it. Turning back to the recommendations, committee is asked to approve the following recommendations: that the Hare Myers Park and Ride full business case be approved and the grant funding be sought in accordance with the City Deal grant distribution process outlined in the assurance framework. Back over to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I ask if there are any questions on this report? Could you indicate now? I'll come to John Anderson.
Thanks, Chair. I'm very pleased to see this report come before this committee today, especially as it's hot on the heels of the Planning Committee giving the green light last month. This is the next step in a major investment from the Scottish Government as part of the £140 million East Kilbride Rail Enhancement Project. A project that will improve service reliability, improve punctuality and provide a faster, greener and more efficient way for users to get to their destination whilst cutting their own carbon footprint. This money is part of a Scottish Government £4 billion investment to deliver the best railway Scotland has ever had, a nationalised railway in public hands, run for the benefit of the public and not for shareholders. I look forward to the completion of this project in a timely manner, unlike the pantomime we see with HS2. Thanks, Chair.
I think for a change there's much that John Anderson has brought to the committee that I would agree with. I would, of course, point out this is a significant project for East Kilbride. And while there's much that John Anderson said that I can agree with, I can't agree with everything. Because the reality is, if this project was to be delivered in the way in which it was originally envisaged, we would have dual track the length of East Kilbride to Glasgow. And I have to say the cutbacks to this project and the diverting of resources to other parts of Scotland, I hope we've mitigated that in our conversations with government. I hope we're able to produce as good a project as possible. Certainly you can see from the way this council has been lobbying for the government to reinstate the funding they took from the Park and Ride project. You can see there is fulsome support for this project from the council. But I hope that in the way the project comes to completion, that we don't make it impossible or prohibitively expensive to upgrade that railway in future. Because I think when we're connecting one of Scotland's biggest towns with Scotland's biggest city, we should have dual track the length of the way. And the next part of the equation, the next part of delivering better services for East Kilbride has got to be to make sure that if we've got better infrastructure, that we actually have a better timetable running on that better infrastructure. And on that, I have to say, ScotRail have been very disappointing over the past few years. So there's a lot of progress. It's welcome. We've got to do more, and we've got to realise the full benefits of this project for East Kilbride and all the communities along that East Kilbride line between East Kilbride and Glasgow. Are there any other questions? There are not. Can I ask us to agree the report? Agreed. Can I come now to item 7, which is representations on outside organisations, and ask Ian Strachan to speak to that report.
Thank you, Chair. Morning. This report, following notification of intention from Councillor McGeever to step down from a couple of positions, we have a couple of nominations to replace him. So Councillor Faulkner replacing him as the Council's representative on Hamilton Sports Council, and Councillor Razak as the Council's representative on the Supplier Development Programme. Happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? There are none. Can we agree the report? Agreed. Agreed. I'll come now to item 8, which is an item for noting. This is on council complaints and SPSO annual overview. Michelle Milne is going to speak to the report. Michelle.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. This is an annual report on council complaints, and it's the SPSO annual overview for 23-24. The purpose of which is to provide a report on the performance of the council's handling of complaints as per the national indicators, and provide an update on customer feedback on complaint handling. You will be familiar with the council requirement at 3.1 and 3.2, just in terms of monitoring and assessing complaints handling performance, as well as being aware of that this is monitored by SPSO. At section 4 at 4.2, you'll see the 4 performance indicators that are monitored detailed there. And at section 5 at 5.1, we report on indicator 1 with the population estimate at 327,200. We've had a total of 1,112 complaints which were received, and this means that there were 3.4 complaints received for every 1,000 head of population, which is 3.3 per 100 head of population. You'll see the table there at table 1 just shows you that trend there in terms of the number of complaints that we've had. And at 5.2, there is information on indicator 2, and at 3 bullet points there, you'll see the percentage of complaints that were received and closed and escalated in terms of the number of working days. At 5.3, there is information on indicator 3, which is about the average time in working days to respond to complaints. And the average number of days to respond at stage 1 is 4.7 working days, and stage 2 is 12.85 working days, and there's more details at appendix 1 on that. You'll see in the paragraph just below that, we're saying that this reflects a slight decline in performance from the 22-23 results, where the average working days to respond was 4.47 and 10.67, and the response times for the resources remain within the recommended timescales of SPSO. You'll see at 5.4, where 2 resources have not met the target times, you'll see that there is a positive trend in the reduction of these timescales. For education resources, it was at 6.5 working days down to 6, and community and enterprise resources 6.3 down to 5.5 working days. Moving over to the top of page 49, I'd just like to flag in the first paragraph, just at the top of that page, that there are factors in failing to meet the 5 working day time scales which might be attributed to more detailed investigations of the complaint being required. We are seeing a rise in the complexity and nature of the complaints that are being raised with us that do take longer than the 5 working days. And some stage 1 complaints have been extended to 10 working days in line with SPSO guidance. However, where an extension is applied in order to fully look at complaints, it's still considered late if it was closed out with that initial 5 working day timescale. So it was just to flag that. And also to say that work continues to take place in terms of trying to improve the timescales and support employees and managers in dealing with complaints. Paragraph 5.5 it provides further information on indicator 3 in terms of escalation of complaints. And then at section 5.6, which covers indicator 4, and again there's more information at appendix 1 and table 1, and it's just giving you some information of the complaints that were upheld, not upheld, and or resolved at stage 1 and 2, and those that were escalated from stage 1 to stage 2. You'll notice in the table in the appendix there is no information on resolved complaints. That's just to give you a wee bit more information in the narrative report. What's in the table in the appendix is just showing you what we've got to report to SPSO. So in terms of the upheld complaints across the resources, most stage 1 complaints were upheld in community and enterprise resources, and the fewest were upheld in education resources. And of the 1,096 complaints closed, 147 were resolved at stage 1, and the resource with the most resolved complaints at stage 1 is social work with 62. Section 6 is just signposting to where information is published on complaints. And then at section 7, it's around customer satisfaction, and we do ask for feedback from customers who have used the complaints procedure. There's information contained on this in appendix 2, and you will see that the figures presented are very low. We're sitting at 4 in terms of the feedback that we have received. Just to add some context to that, that's obviously dictated to us by GDPR, and it's an opt-in process in terms of people opting into the process and us using their email address to issue the survey. And also that where a complaint is anonymous, obviously by the very nature of that, we would not be linking in terms of customer feedback on the complaint. So it was just to add a wee bit of context. Again, at section 8, information you'll be familiar with in terms of signposts into annual statistics and child-friendly complaints. And in terms of sections 9 to 13, this is information that's previously reported to you in terms of employee implications. You'll be very aware of how employees play a key role in this and how we do train and support them to do that. There aren't any financial implications or other implications that I would want to highlight there, and I would refer committee back to recommendation to note the contents of the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Michelle. Can I ask if there are any questions in this report? Could you please indicate now? I don't see any questions on the report, so could we agree to note the report? Agreed. There are no items of urgent business, so thank you for your attendance. I'll bring the meeting to a close. Thank you.